Yeah, I know. It's all my fault, right? It's nobody's fault but mine. Nobody's fault but mine. I mean, you are right in a way. It hasn't quit snowing since I said 3 weeks ago that, we don't have enough snow. We don't have any. Winter's over. It's like gone. I was just jinxing everything. And it hasn't quit snowing. The roads. Oh, it's snowing. Serious though, Andy. I mean, I'm serious. I haven't seen this much snow since the great Peruvian cocaine wars of the mid 80s. Yeah. If you want to hang out, you got to take her out. Cocaine, do. If you want to get down on the ground, cocaine, do. She don't lie. Cocaine, boom, boom, bam, bam. Oh yeah, the 80s. Whew. Yep. Everyone is familiar, and have you ever noticed that? Everybody's familiar with Eric Clapton's version of the song Cocaine. That came out on the 1977. Am I right? I am correct. Do not try to stump me on vinyl. It came out on the 1977 Slow Hand album. But what most people don't know is that Cocaine, the song itself, was originally written and recorded, actually, by singer-songwriter J.J. Cale. Yeah, and that was done in 1976, right? Right, okay. So, not to take anything away from Eric Clapton's version, of course, Eric Clapton, oh, we're not worthy. J.J. Cale's original version, it's better. By far, I think the original is better. Yeah. Yep. I do. We're rolling. We are rolling. If you haven't already, make sure that you hit the thumbs up right over here. The thumbs up button, thumbs up, thumbs down, hit me the thumbs up. And if you already have subscribed, it's right over here. It's on the left. Subscribe to my channel for notifications of new content and great chances to win mediocre prizes. They haven't been downgraded past mediocre. All right. Well, I don't know, man. It's like lay down, Sally, rest here in my arms. Don't you think I want someone to talk to? Little Eric Clapton again. Okay? Well, what's wrong with Clapton? Good morning. It is Monday, February 17th, on a cold, sub-zero, snowy President's Day. It's early morning. It's about 5 after 8. It sucks out, and it has sucked for all of February as far as I'm concerned. Throw that up there again, the forecast. Snow all day. What the heck? Friday and Saturday, 45 degrees, 45 mile an hour winds here in Great Falls. Ain't that February in Montana? I mean, come on. We're like sub-zero, you know, below zero, snowy, windy, and by Friday, Saturday, we'll have 45 mile an hour winds. 45. I don't think it'll melt all the big piles around. I'm seeing anyway. Yep. Hey, where's my prop? And remember, it's right here. And remember. What are we going to remember this morning, Andy? Remember what? We're remembering that this podcast is brought to you in part each and every Monday morning by our good friends and neighbors. Out the door, down the hall, take the stairs, down one flight, and they're 3 doors down. Locally owned, locally operated. Here's Sunday's paper, the Great Falls Gazette. Gonna buy 5 copies for my mother. Hey, gonna see my smiling face on the cover of the Great Falls Gazette. Oh yeah, baby. I just love doing that. We're not going to ever get my face on the cover there. Even money says no. Andy, your future wife is not back there. This is where we're going to end up eventually in America's Most Wanted. Crime Stoppers got... Ooh, look at the girl. She's got a couple black eyes talking when she should have been listening, I'm thinking. Yep. Remember, get your Great Falls Gazette every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. What? It's snowing now. Snowing. Really? Yep. Yep, it's snowing right now. I got snow from my sidewalks in the driveway, you know, in the little front area. They're piled so high that you can't almost see the mailbox. Mailman, stay away from my door. I don't want to see your bills anymore. Yeah, bills anyway. So... yeah, it just stacks of snow, and it's like I haven't seen this. Like I said, I haven't seen piles of snow this high since the great Peruvian cocaine wars of the 1980's, man. And those were some piles of cocaine. My God, it's like, yeah, it's all the haze anyway. I don't remember half the decade. She don't lie, she don't lie, she don't lie. Cocaine. I remember that song of the decade. But, yeah, you know, it was everywhere. It was so acceptable. Yeah, by the end of the 80's, I was raising the right flag and surrender. You know, I was like, time to get off riding that train, high on cocaine. Casey Jones, you better watch your speed. Trouble ahead, trouble behind. Oh yeah, the 80's were just... oh, the whole 80's culture. I mean, the whole thing about the 80's, what was going on, and it feeded on the cocaine boom. You know? The government at that time, in the 80's, were still telling us that, you know, cocaine's not addictive. You know, it's just, you know, it has a low potential for abuse. Yeah, the government's telling us it's not addictive. It has a low potential for abuse. Who came up with that? I'm telling you, that's wrong on 2 counts right there. Even I remember back there in the late 70s, early 80s when the boom was happening, Times Magazine ran an article calling cocaine the champagne of drugs. Everybody gets champagne of drugs. Oh yeah. Oh, I think so too, Andy. I think it was just as widespread, if not more, than fentanyl is today. It just wasn't killing people, and we didn't have the social media and all that. It was glamorized in the 70s and 80s. It was like, cocaine's good, we had shows like Miami Vice, Crockett and Tubbs, their music, the TV show that was in the music that I mentioned, like Eric Clapton. People were just, they were, late 70s, people were like, what were they doing? They were just, let me think where I was now. They were just moving away from the counterculture of pot and acid and mescaline and all of that of the 60s and 70s, and then the country, was all of a sudden flooded with cocaine. It was an acceptable, like I said, the government was like, it's okay, and everybody's tired of doing acid and pot, and it's like, yeah, whatever, peace, love, whatever, and along comes Miami, like, and Pablo Escobar. That was an acceptable alternative to the culture counselor, and everybody was doing cocaine. Okay, it's like, was it worse in the 80s with cocaine than it is now with fentanyl? The cartels were moving both products. I think it was. There was more people doing cocaine than fentanyl. Okay, not everybody's doing fentanyl. Okay, not everybody's doing fentanyl. Everybody was doing cocaine. Okay, politicians, everybody, actors, actresses in Hollywood, directors, producers, music, industry. We're all indulging. The white collar workers, blue collar workers. People at the bar. Hey, you want a line? Hey, pooh! What the hell's that? And not to be left out. Okay. Because at first everybody's like, well, it's a rich man's drug. Everybody's not going to be doing cocaine. The cartels are like flooding the market, using the same routes, the same cartels from the same areas they did with fentanyl today. Like I said, not everybody's doing fentanyl. Politicians, Hollywood. Back then your local podcast, well, they didn't have podcasters, but broadcasters, newscasters, radio DJs. I did work in the radio in the 80s, and I can attest they did cocaine. We could say, what? Everybody was indulging, but not to be left out, okay? Not to be left out, the same time as everybody's doing cocaine, the government's like, it's okay to do crack cocaine and freebasing. Made its appearance in America's poorest neighborhoods and ghettos, making everybody from the rich and famous all the way down to crack cocaine. In the ghetto, truly America's champagne of drugs available for the rich and poor. Cartels. Like I said, Pablo. Never seen Blow? Hey, come on. I think people forget how bad it was, how widespread it was. It was everywhere. It didn't get the press that fentanyl is getting today. And like I said, you're correct if you think it's the same cartels using the same trade routes with the fentanyl today as they were doing with the cocaine in the late 70s and the early 80s, and even the pot in the 60s. Same cartels, same routes. They might have changed the names. Obviously Pablo's not there anymore, but the foundation was laid. One organization moves out, gets old, whatever, gets weak, gets susceptible. Yeah, anything like that. Someone else comes and fills the void, so to speak. They're all operating, like I said, the same routes, same locations. The government has known where the cartels are for years, since the pot in the 60s. If George Young could find Pablo Escobar, some stoner like drug dealer from Boston, don't you think the CIA knows where they're at? Can you say Ronald Reagan in the Iran-Contra hearings? We've talked about the Iran-Contra hearings before. It's old Ronnie and his operatives, directors, were just, playing both sides of the fence. We're going to support the government and the rebels. We're going to get them guns. We're going to take cocaine. And the CIA is going to sell tons worth of cocaine on the streets of America. Look up Iran-Contra hearings, Reagan era, if you don't believe me. We've done it. The whole time Nancy Reagan's blitzing the media with, just say no. It's like, seriously, Nancy? Just say no. Remember the commercial with the frying egg in a frying pan? Visit your brain. Visit your brain on drugs. It's like, all right, geez. While the producers and directors and actors and everybody in it are doing cocaine because everybody's doing cocaine because it's the 80s. The common misconception is that, the cartels are strapping fentanyl packages onto immigrants that are trying to cross the border, women and children. I mean, really. Mother and child is going to have millions of dollars worth of product strapped to their body, and they're not going to know where they're going, and you're going to have checkpoints. It's never worked like that, and it never will work like that. Not a chance. The cartels, that's not how they have major routes. I lived for a time in a major corridor in the 80s. I lived for some time in Lincoln, Nebraska. Yeah, and snow like this outside, and Peruvian snow everywhere in the 80s. If ever a city exemplified the excess of the 80s, the Lincoln, Nebraska did, and everybody's like, what the hell? What was in Lincoln, Nebraska? Well, in the 80s, Lincoln, Nebraska, they had the Nebraska Cornhuskers. They were coached by Tom Osborne. They were the Alabama and Oregon and Michigan and Ohio State of today. Okay, they were it. They were the number one team in the nation. Okay, it was a major college town. Okay, state capital to boot. So you got a major college town. And it's a state capital where there's money, politicians. How many people? 200 280,000, maybe 300,000 in the whole surrounding area. Okay? Girls all looked like Penny, Kaylee Coco from The Big Bang Theory, wearing her Nebraska t-shirt. The girl on trees, blonde, corn-fed Nebraska girls. There was a nightclub called Uncle Sam's. I mentioned working at Uncle Sam's. I mentioned the stories of Uncle Sam's. It was a nightclub that made the Trading Post Saloon in Missoula look like a daycare. Talk about just the whole decor, the whole atmosphere was geared for the college climate in the 80s of cocaine. Yeah, that's, all this town, this bar, everything in the mid-'80s, early 80s, they're all sitting in, Lake in Nebraska. I'm telling people, it was hopping. You got Nature University, it's the state capital. You got Kaylee Coco looking girls growing on trees, right? But it's set smack dab in the corridor, the major corridor of Interstate 80, which runs east and west. It goes from New York to California. And it had an interstate just off the interstate of I-35, which was north-south from like the Mexico border all the way to Chicago. Isn't that convenient, that little crossroads? No, cartels don't use border crossings. They use cars, trucks, semis. Hell, they even use tunnels and small planes. Very sophisticated by design. And a lot of help from Uncle Sam, too. So, it was amazing to live in that area where the obvious trafficking would have flowed right before your very eyes. Literally the place was, a crossing area for cartels. We were seeing trucks going from, north-south, going from, Mexican plates, down Texas, plates, Yep. It was amazing and sad all at the same time how it's acceptable. Yeah. By the end, I was gone. I was like, by the end of the 80s, the sobriety, the cocaine wars took its toll. Took its toll on me for sure. Leaving Lincoln, Nebraska, getting, like a personal crossroads. We've talked about it before, Andy. A couple other friends. I left my heart in Lincoln, Nebraska. Yeah, that kind of goes how like the song goes, doesn't it? Yeah, it was just, the cartels have been running the same game, doing the same route. 60s pot, 70s, 80s cocaine. They did meth for a while. Now meth got homegrown, and now they're doing fentanyl. Same players, same place, same methods. They've been smuggling drugs in trucks and semis since the 60s. They're still doing it. Yep. It's a lot easier to get through a checkpoint than it is to try to go 80 some miles from the border. Exactly. Do it legitimately. Right. Do it legitimately and do it right. Right. Yep. Speaking of part, Yep. Cocaine 80s were rough on society. Here it's making a comeback. I don't know why. Anybody that would want to do a drug that inherently makes you paranoid. Speaking of the cocaine 80s, and being part of that culture this weekend. Did you watch that this weekend? 50 years of Saturday Night Live. So 50 years, I was a teenager when it first came out. Hard to believe it's been on 50 dang years. Pretty much most of my life. The 50th anniversary literally ran for 3 nights long. You had the live concert on Friday. Okay, a live concert, today's bands, then a history of the bands who played on the show over the years on Saturday, and then the 50th anniversary show, of course, was last night. So Saturday Night Live was live from New York, where Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. Good 9 hours worth of. Yeah, it's history. It's been around long. You got not ready for prime time players. Oh, everybody. You got Adam Sandler, Kristen Wiig, Eddie Murphy, Will Ferrell, Chevy Chase was there. Jay Curtin, lots of everybody. Kim Kardashian was there. Yep. Chris Rock, Tom Hanks. Pete Davidson, Kardashian were both there. That was probably uncomfortable, no doubt. Yeah. Well, almost everybody was there. The cocaine 80s and the cocaine excess did take 2 that I mentioned. We're going to mention. They took kind of 2 of the funniest guys on there, I think. John Belushi and Chris Farley. Chris just had his birthday last Friday. February 15th, so Saturday? Yeah, Saturday. That was his birthday. Miss you, Chris. All in all, man, it was like just a trip down memory lane for 3 nighs. Funny, all sorts of people were showing up, making cameos. It was funny how when it first started, remember, during the early years, that the music and the comedy were just like linked. Remember they showed that clip of Paul Simon where he did the opening monologue and was the musical guest, and it was his idea to mix comedy with song, and was dressed as a rooster. Was it a rooster with the rooster feet and everything, and sang "Still Crazy" after all these years. Yeah, the link between comedy and music went hand in hand in the early years. That's what it was about. Remember the first time you saw Belushi and Aykroyd singing was not the Blues Brothers, it was the King Bees, when the Big Bees skit. They did King Bee. Yeah, the Killer Bees or whatever they were called. It was, in the first couple of years, the Bees were always on. So, if you don't think that, if you do not think that Saturday Night Live was a big piece of the American culture, you haven't been paying attention. What? You have been paying attention. What? You are correct. Yeah. What? You are correct. Richard Pryor did light himself on fire freebasing crack cocaine back in the 80s. Like I said, it was, no, it did not happen nobody was freebasing on Saturday Night Live on TV. No, it happened Yeah, and then he did part of his comedy routine and made fun of it. You know, that's just part of the excess of the cocaine 80s. You know, not only are you having cartels bringing the drugs in, but you got Richard Pryor, right? He's lighting himself on fire, freebasing cocaine, and then it becomes part of his comedy routine. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, that's all right. People are like, yeah, I can relate to that. What, you can relate to catching yourself on fire? I'm glad those days are over. I hated those. You know, in retrospect, how did we even make it through those days? Just... Nancy's telling us, just say no. Like, really, Nancy? Well, you saw her in the nightclub? I do not think that you saw her in a nightclub. Yeah, I just think it's shocking that the cartels... You know, again, I want to say this, that the cartels have been using the same routes from the same location since the 60s, bringing pot through 60s and 70s. And then in the 70s and 80s, they were bringing cocaine. And then in the 90s, it's meth. And now it's fentanyl. It's like 50 years, 60 years. We know where they're at. We could do something about it. Yes, we could. If they really wanted to do something about it, they could. So, that's that. All right. Andy, what do we got planned today? Nothing. We are out of here the rest of the day because it is a holiday. That's President's Day. It used to be, Washington and Lincoln and 2 different days or something. Then they said, put them all together, we'll sell everybody. We'll even celebrate Nixon. So, on that note, enjoy your President's Day. Cold and snowy as it might be. Adopt, don't shop. Spay and neuter. Foster, rescue, volunteer. And you know the drill. Adopt a shelter pet today. Andy, we are out of here. We are out of here. Have a great week. Enjoy your President's Day. We will see you next Monday.